What's going on, everybody? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Playbook Sports Podcast. Coming at you with not a full studio. Unfortunately, Addison is down today, not feeling great. That's okay. We may force some picks on him just to make him pay for it, although only one of us made a shot, so who knows what'll happen there. Yeah. But we got Dantan, Sage, Brian. Obviously not the fade this year, as you are 20 games over 500 in our picks. Yep. Documented 55 and 35. I mean, that's fucking impressive.
It's not bad. Especially against the spread, not even money line.
No, against the spread picks. If you go 500 against the spread, that's decent. Like, that's pretty good. If you go 20 games over 500 for the first 6 weeks, that is damn impressive. Yeah. I will say Thursday night, not off to a good start this week for the three of us here, actually.
That was rough.
Because we all took the Saints. Thanks a lot, Derek Carr. You stink. They're screwed.
Yeah.
Before I introduce my other co-host, Cephs, obviously at the end, here and ready to party, the Saints are in trouble. Yeah, Derek Carr looks bad, and they can't get out of his contract for anything for like 3 years.
Nope.
Like, if they cut him after this season, it's a $95 million dead cap hit. Ooh. In 2025, so not next year, but in 2025, they are currently $47 million over the cap already.
I feel like they're having cap problems for the past 3 years, and they just keep making
They do. They just keep compounding it. Right. They can't cut anybody without it being losing more money. Nick Wright. First, I love their show. First things first. Great show. But he went on like this thing on Twitter or X, and he was just letting the Saints fans hear it. He's like, "Yeah, you guys are screwed. You continue to go all in with Jameis Winston as your quarterback. What? What are we doing? Like, you are 80 currently going into next year. They're 87 million over the cap already." And then they're the only team over the cap already in 2025. Jesus. That is bad. They are historically screwed. It's time to hit the reset button.
Yeah.
But speaking of teams that don't need to hit the reset button, let's dive into our power rankings going into week 7 of the NFL. Before we get into today's video, guys, I just want to give a special shout out to today's sponsors, starting with Goldfine & Bowles, Lawyers for the Injured. Personal injury, workers' compensation, those are their two things, but any sort of legal advice, they're the people to call. Give them a phone call, 309-673-5144. Tell them we sent you, okay? And I'd also like to shout out SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video as well. Use promo code PlaybookSports on their website to get $20 off your first purchase of $30 or more. Let's get back to the video. Cease, why don't you lead us off down there?
All right, so I went back and forth, excuse me. Frog in my throat.
Wow, dude.
Obviously, there's 5-1 teams. We talked about it before we started recording.
Yep.
So you kind of got to pick between the 5-2 team or the other 4-2 teams. I'm going to go with the 5-2 team. I'm going to go with Jacksonville Jaguars. Here's my honorable mention. Yeah. Recency bias. They did just win last night. Right. Spoiler, we're recording this on Friday.
Yep.
But 5-2, and I mean, they beat the Bills. They beat the Bills, so that's a team I'd consider. And I'm not putting my Cowboys back in there quite yet. Okay. So I'm going Jacksonville, honorable mention.
Okay.
Fifth spot, Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sliding them down just because you look at only 2 of those 5 teams lost, and I think the one that lost a little bit better than Philadelphia lost.
I mean, Jalen Hurts looked ordinary.
I mean, 3 picks against the Jets without their top, 2 corners?
Top 3. They were down their top 3 corners.
That last pick was bad.
That was bad.
That was bad.
Atrocious.
Same energy.
Yeah.
3 interceptions. Eagles are 5th here on my list. Detroit Lions, number 4. They're just rolling. Yeah, they look scary.
They look very good.
Very good.
They look very good.
But the 3 teams above them, I think, could beat them on a neutral field, and that's kind of how I rank my power rankings here. So I have Miami Dolphins at 3rd here on my rankings. All they do is keep winning and winning and winning. Down 14-0.
And covering.
Yeah, and covering.
Yeah, winning and covering.
Down 14-0 is scary. I'd put no stock into that Mike White pick 6 at the end, because who cares?
No.
But they almost didn't cover because of it, and that was terrifying. Number 2, they lost to P.J. Walker, but the San Francisco 49ers, they still look really good. Yeah. But end of the game situation, they got in range to make a field goal for the win, and they just didn't win. But they didn't look good throughout the entire game, in my opinion. But they're still number 2 on my list because I think the only team that might be able to beat them is Kansas City.
Yeah, which before this past week was the last team to beat them in a regular season game. Yeah. Kansas City last year when they absolutely destroyed them, 44-23, I think it was. Yep. In either McCaffrey's first game or the game right before they got McCaffrey. But
yeah, I said basically, I think week 11 last year I think I said that on my power rankings every week. I'm like, there's one team I had to bet on a neutral field. It's Kansas City and the Chiefs, and that's why they're still number 1 here. I mean, a 1-point loss at home in week 1 is their only blemish.
Fluky week 1 game, absolutely. I think Jacksonville's hard to keep out at this point. I am keeping them out, but it's hard to do it because they have started to look better. They put it on the Bills in London, then they came back, and then they just whooped up on the Saints on Thursday Night Football. Like, they've looked the part again. They're starting to figure it out, I think. They looked kind of dicey at the beginning of the year, obviously, but they have started to figure it out, man. And it's hard not to put Jacksonville in there. It is, they've played 7 games compared to everyone else, 6 at most. So we'll see how the rest of it stacks up. But right now, they're tied for the league lead in wins. So that's all I got to say right there.
Fair enough.
Sage, power rankings.
Yeah, power rankings. I'm going to start off with my honorable mention. I'm going to throw Baltimore in there. Not just because I'm a homer, but when you really think about it, out of all the 6 games that they've played, they have legitimately looked better than the other team in all 6 games. The 2 losses that they've had were against the Colts, which
they're better than the Colts.
Was rough.
There's no question.
And then the weirdest game I've ever seen against the Steelers, where everything was dropped and the Steelers got lucky on just about everything that could possibly happen. So when you take away those things, the Ravens looked better in every single game. Theoretically, should be 6-0. We're not. I'm not saying we should. I'm not saying
we're like a 6-0 team.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're a 6-0 team, but hey, here we are.
Right
I think the Ravens should be there, and hey, they have a chance this week to really fucking
Here we go. Yep, let's see something.
Number 5, I got the Philadelphia Eagles. Just like you had number 5, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I had Philadelphia Eagles. But first time in Eagles history they have ever lost to the New York Jets.
Yeah, I saw that. That's crazy.
And they've been around forever.
Both those teams have been around forever.
That's kind of wild.
First time they've ever. I mean, they play every 4 years. Hypothetically, you play every division. I mean, that's impressive that they haven't ever lost to them before this past weekend.
Kind of wild. But even then, like, they were going up against a rattled second, or not a rattled secondary, an injury rattled secondary. And Jalen Hurts just wasn't getting it done.
No,
and they had chance after chance after chance, and they just weren't pulling it through. And even if you're playing, granted, a very talented Jets defense,
very good defense,
you were supposed to be a top 2 offense in the NFL.
Yes. Yep.
And you did not show that against practice squad players.
Yeah.
So,
backups, man.
Sorry, that's why you're number 5. Granted, hey, you had great wins so far. Proud of you.
I just don't understand. Sorry, Doug.
You're good.
Before we keep going, I just don't understand how you don't punt the ball back to the Jets with
and
no timeouts and just say go down. I know you only have 2, so a field goal screws you, but he has to get there.
Yeah, he has to get in field goal range, which he hadn't really done all week. Instead, they're having Hurts throw it, slings another pick.
Yeah. While we are talking about that game, Breece Hall, fuck you, fuck you.
That was unbelievable.
1 yard short.
1 yard short.
He punched in that touchdown. I was like, oh my god, I think he's going to be a yard short. And we looked at the stats, and it was 39. 39 yards. Needed 40 for a huge parlay to hit 200 to win 900.
That was heartbreaking.
Devastating. Love the bet.
Breece Hall also lost 2 yards in the previous drive.
We were talking about that too.
Yeah. He was at like 33, and then he's at 31.
And then he got 8 on the touchdown.
And then he hit an 8-yard touchdown. Worst
day
of my life.
Bad beat.
Worst
day of my life.
Worst day of my life, easily. Anyways, I'm never drafting you in fantasy football.
Yeah, you're off. You're gone.
Yeah, you're cut off for me. Number 4, I got the Miami Dolphins. Hey, first quarter happened, and then they were like, hey, you guys are in a football game. They're like, oh, we are?
Gotta start playing, guys. Gotta start
doing something. And then they just were like, oh, yeah, we have Tyreek Hill.
Oh, yeah, just
forgot about that.
Just run the ball. Mostert, who had 3 more touchdowns.
Mostert he was like, I think his ADP, like, before in fantasy was like 126.
Yeah, late.
And this man is the number 2 running back in the NFL.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We looked at our draft board that's still hanging in Nate's garage
upstairs,
and I think he went like 8th round in our draft. And that's insane.
Absolutely.
And that's early for him in most drafts.
It is.
That's like early for him.
It's almost like Miami came out in this game. They're like, we know we're the better team.
Yeah.
Let's just spot them 14.
Let's just give them 14.
Let's go ahead and have some fun.
Yeah, then have some fun. God.
It was a little frustrating for the people that thought they were going to cover, and then it immediately went down, and they were like, oh, no, we still got you.
We're good.
That was nice.
Yeah.
Also, flagging Tyreek Hill on the celebration.
Come on, man. Let him celebrate.
A little soft.
Let's have some fun.
Why are we flagging any celebration?
I get it's like a prop, so that's probably why. But
he went like that's an NFL employee standing there with the cell phone. Tyreek grabbed it, did a backflip, handed it back, and they're like, "Oh yeah, $100,000 fine." It's like, oh, come on, man. Let the guys play.
Was he wearing socks this time?
Yes, he had to because he got fined for it several times.
My number 3 team is the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, like they've been grinding out these victories, and they haven't really blown anyone out of the water that I've been waiting for, you know. And the 2 teams that I have above them have been blowing teams out consistently. The Chiefs, granted, if you put them on a neutral field against any team, they have a very, very good shot to win every single game.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, just because Patrick Mahomes always gives you a good shot to win these games.
Yeah.
And they have Mecole Hardman back, so who knows? Maybe that's the missing link.
Because the Jets threw him 1 pass,
yeah,
and they're like, nah,
we're good.
It's like what?
My number 2 team is a team that lost to the PJ Walker-led San Francisco 49ers. And I think we finally learned a little bit about Brock Purdy.
Yes.
You take away a weapon, and he kind of falters. You don't have Christian McCaffrey to throw to anymore. He's not carrying the rock. He's not carrying the team. His back hurt a little bit.
Yep.
And then Debo goes down,
and then he's really in trouble.
Then you're really in trouble, you know. And then
let's not act like he's still limited. He still has Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. It's like and still a top 5 offensive line. It's like you should still be able to produce here.
I will say Trent Williams did go down a little bit.
Yes, he was hurt.
He's in a walking boot right now. Yeah. But hey, still number 2 team after losing to a backup.
Yeah,
not a bad rep.
That's generous.
The audacity to wear a fuck Dallas shirt and
I
then have 1 catch for 1 yard the next week.
Shut down.
The goal.
That's what you get, George Kittle. That's what you get.
Take that fine. Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday. They were considering fining him. I'm like, we're gonna fine Tyreek Hill money for giving his mother a football, but we're gonna let George Kittle flash fuck Dallas at the crowd.
Jesus.
What are we doing here?
There are children.
Yeah,
watching.
think about the children, Roger. The children. Son of a bitch.
And my number 1 team in the NFL, y'all can guess it.
Kansas City.
The Detroit Lions. Right here.
Kansas City's at 3, I forgot.
Detroit
number 1.
Detroit number 1.
I'm
You
not
know
mad
why?
at it. I'm not mad at it.
You know why?
Makes me feel gross to think
All
about.
of the 4 victories they have, 3 of them have been by over 2 touchdowns.
Oh, they've kicked ass.
Over 2 touchdowns.
Awesome.
In fact, it's a combined 60 points. Now, I know that doesn't sound like much to a Miami fan over here who won by 50.
50 in 1 game.
Right.
Right.
But when you're not playing the Denver Broncos,
They're terrible.
They have outscored every single one of their opponents by a lot. Yeah. Aside from the Seattle Seahawks, who are a great team, and they were obviously week 2. Who knows what's happening right there? Exactly. They're figuring their stuff out, but the reason they're number 1 for me is not because of these great victories. It's because of these great victories that they're doing with an injury, they've
got plenty of injuries.
Tons of them.
Yeah.
All over the secondary. They've won without Amon-Ra. They've won without Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yep.
Sam Laporta's been banged up.
Yep.
They've had injury after injury after injury, and they keep
Still
coming
winning.
back.
Yeah.
They don't care who's on the field. If they are wearing that Honolulu blue, they are biting kneecaps.
They are fighting kneecaps.
And Dan Campbell has them ready. And that's why I have the Detroit Lions number 1.
I love that. Yeah, it's hard. All 5 of these teams, 5-1, and you can argue any of them for a top spot and for a 5 spot. So jumping into mine here, I've got Dallas in my honorable mention. I like what they did against the Chargers offense. That showed me more. If the Cowboys had gone out and lost 30-32, I feel, obviously you feel better about a win, but I'd rather them win this close, low-scoring game because it showed me their defense can step up when they need them to.
Yep.
The defense stepped up. Yes, Justin Herbert missed Keenan Allen wide open. Maybe we need to have a conversation about Justin Herbert at some point, and maybe how we crowned him as a top 5 QB just a little early because he doesn't have any clutch genes in his entire body. If the game's close, you lost. You lost, Los Angeles. I'm sorry. But I liked how Dallas' defense stepped up. They're missing guys. Stephon Gilmore with the game-winning interception. Loved it.
Yep.
I have written down here, considered the Jags, didn't put them. And the Bills dropped because what the hell was that against the Giants? In Buffalo. What are we doing? 14 points?
That was disgusting.
Against Tyrod Taylor and them? What are we doing?
Disgusting.
You're a non-call in the end zone away from losing that game.
Yep.
Aaron Waller's getting yanked down, and I know you don't want to talk about refs, but still, that's a non-call away from them getting one more chance on the half-inch yard line.
Well, it was a Tyrod Taylor revenge game.
It was a Tyrod Taylor revenge game. Still didn't score any touchdowns, but it was a Tyrod Taylor revenge game. So I've got Dallas in my honorable mention. Again, there's several teams you could put there. You could argue Baltimore. Yes, what you got?
Quickly on Herbert.
Yeah.
I had screenshotted this tweet earlier this week and I deleted it, so I gotta
find it in the deleted pictures.
Since Herbert came in the league in 2020, 13 career fourth quarter interception and 1-score games, 5 more than the next quarterback on that list.
He's not clutch. He's not clutch.
That's a lot.
That is. Those are the intangibles you can't measure. Oh, he's got beautiful long hair and he's 6'5" and he has a rocket attached to his body. When the game matters, he doesn't have it.
And he's got weapons.
And
he
doesn't
have an excuse.
No excuses at all. A good offensive line, a good running back in the backfield. Keenan Allen out there. Quentin Johnson, who? He doesn't see the ball ever. Quentin Johnson, what a waste of a first-round pick that was.
They could have taken...
They could have taken Zay Flowers.
They could have.
They didn't. They said, no, give us Mike Williams 2.0, who is doing what Mike Williams did in his early parts of his career. Disappearing. Dallas at honorable mention. I do have Detroit at 5 here. And again, you could argue them anywhere in the top 5 respectfully. Their one loss was in overtime. They are very close to being 6-0. I think on a neutral field with the other 4 teams, it would be an absolute dogfight, and I'd love to see it. I don't know if Detroit plays any of my other top 4 teams, except they know they already played and beat Kansas City, to be fair. again, these are all I feel like they're all 1A through E. Like, you could argue all of them at the top. So I've got Detroit at 5. I just don't trust Jared Goff when the going gets tough. That's my only concern.
See, why not, though?
I don't know. Because of what he did.
I think you got a bad taste in your mouth.
I think I do
from
from the
days.
Super Bowl and the Rams.
Yeah.
I do.
3 points in the Super Bowl is tough.
What?
3 points in the
3
Super
points
Bowl is tough.
That
is
is
tough.
That's a bad look. When you're the highest scoring offense in the NFL all season and you put up 3 against the Patriots, and you let the Patriots win another Super Bowl. I think that's why I hate it the most.
I would argue that that's more impressive that he's doing that now after that.
Agreed. Oh, what he's doing in Detroit is unbelievable.
They won that trade.
Yeah, they did.
The Rams got their Super Bowl.
Yep, they got their Super Bowl.
I
Great.
guess in the scheme of things,
they win.
But
Also, it could be a
they're not
win-win.
winning a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford, though, so you might as well get what you get.
And Goff has been fantastic for them. I undervalued him, and I have to root against the Lions a little bit because I told the Gassman that there was 0% chance the Lions win the Super Bowl this year. So I have to hope they don't win a Super Bowl, so that way I'm not wrong. But they have been fantastic.
I'm going.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I'll be there.
Vegas would be
you
nuts.
mentioned their one loss is overtime. They didn't touch the ball in overtime.
Yeah, they didn't even get the ball.
Yeah,
They didn't even get the ball. If the coin flips the other way, are they 6-0? Maybe.
Ooh.
My number 14, your Miami Dolphins. I'm not going to put us above Philly or Kansas City or San Francisco. I know San Francisco and Philly had some ugly losses. We also had an ugly loss. So if you go through and you stack up the losses for the teams ahead of them, I like their losses just a little more, except maybe San Francisco's, but San Francisco is so good.
Yeah.
If you weren't playing Philly this week, would you have Miami above?
Probably, but I'm not jinxing anything. Okay? Knocking on wood, I'm not jinxing
I see
anything.
right through you.
I
see right
totally
through you.
know. I totally would
That
have
was
us at
good.
3, but we're playing Philly. I can't put us above them yet. Give me a couple days. Speaking of Philly, I have them at 3. They were 2. I did drop them. They're actually, I think that's my only change from my last week's power rankings is I moved Philly from 2 to 3 because how do you lose to the Jets like that, man? Where's your offense at against that beat up team? Like, you know, the Eagles going into the game were like, yes, we get a shitty defense that is beat the hell up. We're gonna go all over them. They couldn't do anything. Couldn't run the ball. Couldn't pass the ball. It was embarrassing. Jalen Hurts, much like Justin Herbert, maybe we crowned him as a top 3 quarterback in the NFL just a smidge too soon. He's been a starter for 3 seasons. He's had 1 fantastic year, and he had his first year was this year 7 touchdowns, 7 picks. Show me something, man. You just got paid $250 million. What are you doing throwing 7 interceptions in the first 6 games?
How much was it was Shane Steichen? No?
Yeah, right. Was Shane Steichen the key there? And John,
Anthony Richardson looks damn good when he's there.
Yeah, so now he's done for the year.
Yeah, he's done for the year.
God dang, 3 injuries in 5 games. Unbelievable. Brutal. Kansas City at number 2. For me, I haven't been impressed with their wins recently. They're not blowing anybody out. And the offense still isn't really clicking for me. I'm still waiting to see that offense get going.
Yeah.
Their defense has been fantastic, which is awesome. And if you're a Chiefs fan, you have to feel good about this team because we're just waiting on Patrick Mahomes to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And once they figure it out, the whole league's in trouble because their defense has been top 5. And then number 1, I've got San Francisco still holding down that top spot. I'm going to chalk it up to a fluky game, and I'm going to move along.
Yep.
That's all.
Totally valid.
Yeah. And I didn't touch... I think I touched... Yeah, I touched on everybody. I think Philly, Kansas City, San Francisco is a top 3 still going into this week. Detroit's got a chance to make some noise at Baltimore. Baltimore's got a chance to make some noise hosting Detroit. Yeah. We've got a battle of some top teams this week. We're finally going to see what these teams have. I mean, you could argue Philly and Miami have had probably the easiest start to their seasons as opposed when it comes to opponents, which is funny because before the year, they had the first and second hardest strength of schedule. But now the teams that they're playing, they're beating, and those teams all stink. And they're both 5-1, and everyone's like, oh, it doesn't count for Miami, but Philly's doing really good. Like, right there. I'm so sick of it. Miami hasn't played anybody. Who the fuck has Philadelphia played? Anybody good? Their best team they've played was the Jets, who had 3 starting corners out. And Zach Wilson. And they lost the game. So, bite me. But
I'll say, speaking of the Jets, I know before the season started, you were talking mad shit about Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and you said their first 6 games, they'd be lucky to go 3-3.
Yeah, well, they went 3-3.
And now look at them,
3-3
without
lucky.
Rodgers.
Consider them lucky.
Without Aaron Rodgers.
I know. I do have to say, we don't know this because Aaron Rodgers is not here, and I'm not dealing in the world of ifs and buts. You know, Jalen Ramsey didn't get hurt. If all these things happen, then what are the Dolphins? You know what I mean? But Aaron Rodgers with that team right now would be kind of scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they have looked good defensively. They have looked damn good defensively.
Absolutely agree.
But they're not going to win much with Zach Wilson at quarterback. And all of this, Aaron Rodgers is coming back. There's no way he's going to come back this season, in my opinion.
No.
I love all the smoke and the hype. I think that's just, again, I think it's just smoke. I think they're just trying to get everybody, keep coming to the games. We're still in this. We're still in this. Come on, hype them up. But he's not going to show up.
I still do think they have a chance for the playoffs.
They might because, I mean, look at around the AFC. A lot of the contenders are not playing like they should be.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few teams like we're talking about the Texans is fighting for a playoff spot right now.
They're close to being having that win against Kansas City too.
Yeah,
3. Like they could have had 3 wins against the Bills, Kansas City, and Eagles
and Philly, which is crazy.
Jesus.
Impressive. Yeah, I know. Jets are weird. Their defense is so good, and they're 3-3, so they're hanging in there. Good for them. You know,
they play a lot better at home.
They are a lot better in New Jersey.
We'll say, I would 100%. Love to see if Hard Knocks continued into the season.
What
we are robbed from right now, seeing that behind the scenes.
Oh, just hearing what the coaches had to say when Rodgers went down, like, we're fucking stuck with this Zach Wilson guy again. We tried so hard to get rid of him, and we're stuck with him.
I will say to Robert Saleh, I mean, week 2, the opposing quarterback wasn't embarrassed.
No, I don't know what he's talking about. Embarrassed there. It's like,
Zach Wilson, only person I think that can challenge DeMar Hamlin for comeback player of the year.
Zach Wilson?
Only player that can challenge DeMar Hamlin.
I think right now DeMar's the first in odds, and actually Tua's second odds for comeback player of the year.
I don't
he
know
missed
why.
all of those. He missed all those games last year.
No.
Come on.
I'd vote
Tua's
for Zach.
Jitsu is working.
I'd vote for Zach Wilson.
I don't want comeback player of the year. I want MVP.
Yeah, I'll say you don't want that award.
Give me the MVP instead. But that's what we got for power rankings. The same 5 teams because they have to be. There's 5 5-1 teams, and they're all good 5-1 teams.
Yep.
You know, there's no fluky 5-1 team here right now, like Arizona was 2 years ago when they were, like 8 or 9-0.
Oh, that was weird.
Very, very fluky. Speaking of, Kyler Murray coming back. Kyler Murray may be back soon. I don't know why he would, but Josh Dobbs has been good. If Kyler Murray comes out and stinks, do they put Josh Dobbs back out there? I don't know.
No, they're paying him too much money.
They are paying him so much money, and they cannot get out of that contract.
And if Murray's playing worse, you almost want him to continue to
play.
continue
to suck. Although that kills his trade value then. Now you've got nothing.
That's a good point.
You gotta trade him. He's gotta have 2 good games. You gotta trade him.
And then trade him. Trade him at the deadline.
Yep.
Yeah, because he's got a chance.
He can still play well and lose.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
He can play
Look at
well.
Kirk Cousins.
You're right. If he true. Kirk Cousins is the king of that.
That's what he does. He's made so much money off that.
So much money of playing great, and his team just falls apart. Vikings are terrible. Although they did beat the Bears. Sorry, Addison.